We'll begin with a land acknowledgement. Missoula County acknowledges that this event takes place in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kootenai people. And with that, would you join me in the pledge? Thanks. Pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everybody. Before we dive in, do we have any public announcements? Dave, would you do your 90-second recap of the super successful summit?
Yeah, why not? Given the silence there. Yeah, so before all is said and done today, I will put in the chat column here the link to the Passenger Rail Summit webpage that contains a link to watch the video feed from last week's event. So last week we had the Montana Passenger Rail Summit, and I just got a message that my PC is going to go dead here in a second. So anyway, I will talk fast. Over 300 folks attended this event across the nation. Super high attendance, super high engagement by folks. And this is just one piece of our effort and our initiative to restore passenger rail service to the southern part of the state, to create the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority. So if you get a chance, click on the link that I will provide here shortly. Watch the summit at your leisure. I think it was an educational and engaging and hopefully a little bit of an inspirational event for everyone.
Yeah, I would add 100% of our congressional delegation called in, as well as our governor.
And if you can't visually watch it, it's totally worth just listening to while you're going about your day. It's that engaging. It's and I don't say that about a bunch of so it was really well done, Dave.
Thanks.
Hey. All right, do we have any public comment out there on items not on the agenda? Feel free to comment. Okay, I'll let you know about our claims list received as of September 2, from September 2 to September 15th by the Commissioner's Office. Our claims total $3,158,542.66. And you're welcome to go to our website and see specifically how that money was spent. Well, today we have 4 hearings. The first hearing is on the Trinity Project, and our own Chris Lounsbury will present.
Thank you, Commissioners. Hopefully my screen here will share for you in just a second. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this project today. Just almost exactly a year ago today, the Commissioners signed a resolution of intent to donate land next to the detention facility for an affordable housing and supportive housing program out here at 2340 Mullen Road. Okay, and I have to figure out how we use PowerPoint. Sorry about that. So we scrolled ahead. That resolution set the land donation at approximately 4 acres with the idea of at least 30 units of the housing being supportive housing units that would be occupied by individuals or families earning below about 30% of the area median income, and then 100 units for those earning below 70% of the area median income. As we've moved forward with that project, there have been a lot of changes as they've actually gone out, surveyed the site, began to develop documents for that, and worked closely with our partners at the Sheriff's Office, the detention center, and others in the areas. And so as they've gone through that, they've attempted to address things like the need for sightlines and making sure that the sightlines of the jail were respected, making sure there was good buffer space between the project and the detention facility. Also making sure that they maintained as much additional land for future expansion out at that project for different county needs, as well as making sure that they had good, safe access for the public into the project. And also they addressed some really challenging issues related to walkability and site permeability for pedestrians and for traffic entering the project as well. So what you have before you today that we'll be asking you to consider is a new resolution that does a couple of things. The first is it increases the size of the land donation to 5.28 acres. And that increase really does not change the size of the project, but as we were going through the process, the project was asked to move from the northwestern corner to the southeastern corner, and that southeast corner has quite a bit of utility easements in it, as well as an irrigation ditch, all of which are not buildable land. So the additional land that we're talking about here would be in a non-buildable state because of the irrigation ditch. So the project size didn't really change, but the donation does in order to accommodate that. It also does a good job of creating a connection, a true street into the project where Maple Street is right now. Maple never really was fully developed. That's the street near Dollar Rent-A-Car that currently enters the detention facility parking lot. Was never really built to a true street standard. That will address this. It also creates an access for the project off of Mullen Road. One of the big benefits to the county is the parcel that will remain part of the detention facility will get an easement out to Broadway, which it doesn't currently have an easement that's big enough to actually accommodate an entrance or exit in the future should the county develop out in that space. In addition to which, this resolution also increases the percentages related to that affordability, so it makes these units even more affordable and more accessible for folks. And it continues that goal that both the city and the county have expressed as part of their commitment towards ending homelessness, and there's for a partnership master lease agreement for a navigation center. And so with that, I'm going to stop this piece of the presentation and ask our friends from both the city of Missoula. We have Aaron Pehan with us today, as well as some folks from Homeward and Blue Line Development who are doing this. And I'm going to switch. I'm going to run their presentation for them. But we have Keenan Witt here to speak with us, and Andrea Davis and a few others also to give you some more information and actually show everyone exactly what those changes look like. So I apologize in just the momentary glitch of technology here as we stop sharing one presentation and I switch over to the other presentation, which hopefully you will be able to see here in just a moment. It should say Trinity Project. Then I will. This is where I struggle. There's a full screen mode. There it is, so that you can actually see that. And we'll invite Keenan and others to go ahead and unmute and present on this. And when you're ready for me to change the slide, just let me know and I will make that change.
Chris, thank you. This is Andrea Davis, and I'm going to go ahead and present on part of the development and the ownership team today. So I very much appreciate you running the slideshow. Thank you for doing that. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andrea Davis. I'm the Executive Director of Homeward, one of 3 development partners, part of the Trinity Project. So as you can see there, Homeward, Blue Line Development, and the Missoula Housing Authority. Next slide, please. This is a bit of a redo on the project that we had presented, or the presentation from last August. And this just gives the folks on the call here an idea of who we are as organizations involved in this complex and exciting project here in Missoula. Next slide, please. Specifically, we included this slide in the presentation because I am highlighting throughout this presentation changes in the resolution that we have been working with Chris and his team on, and I would be remiss not to thank Chris publicly for the work that we've done together. He's been extremely accommodating, cooperative, and collaborative, and it's been really great as we've moved through a very complex project here in public process, both with the city and the county, as well as the sheriff's office and the county detention. So some of the changes that you'll see in the resolution in front of you today, Chris did a great job of articulating why it is that we have an increase in the size of the acreage that the county is considering donating to the project. Mostly, of course, as you heard, it accommodates neighboring easements, public right-of-way, and the irrigation ditch. So one of the other changes that you'll see in the resolution is that this project, which is specifically 202 homes that Missoulians can afford, the title of the resolution, as well as some language within the resolution, actually says homes that people can afford, rental homes that are affordable. And why do we say that and not low income? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, in the spirit of people first language, we really have gotten away from calling people and things low income, right? So people may earn low incomes, they may live with low incomes, but they're not necessarily low income as a thing. And additionally, this project serves a very big bandwidth of different incomes. Specifically, it serves people earning between 30% of the area median income and 70%. In the resolution, we've asked to go all the way up to 80% area median income because that's what tax credit financing allows us to do, even though right now our pro forma only shows rents at 70% of the area median income. And as a result of that, that's really rents that Missoulians can afford. And so we've asked for that language to be inserted, and the county staff has been willing to do so. On this chart, and it's kind of small, I know that it's difficult to see here, but you'll see at the very top, it says Trinity Apartments LLLP. And that is the ownership. Limited liability, limited partnership is the ownership entity that will own Trinity Apartments. And that is made up of the Missoula Housing Authority and Homeward. And we will have wholly owned subsidiaries that actually are the general partners in that limited partnership. Blue Line Development is our co-developer. We're developing together. They are our development consultant. And so in the resolution, originally it had said the developer is committed to this long-term responsibility. The developer is committed to, you know, this long-term 50-year responsibility for this project. And really the specifics and the accuracy is that the owner is responsible. And again, it's a change in the resolution. I wanted to address that here on the public hearing to make sure that folks understood why it is that we had requested that change. Next slide, please. This just gives a quick illustration of where the two sites are, because while we're here talking about the Mullen Road donation from the county to the project, there are two sites involved for the whole 202 apartment project. And you all know where the Mullen Road site is, adjacent to the detention center. And then northeast of that site is the Trinity Cooley site. And that's the location of the previous Skyview trailer park. And we'll talk about that a little bit today, just as far as the overall project, but really we're focusing on the Mullen Road site. So next slide, please. This is a quick review of the funding and goals that the funding this project utilizes and the goals that it achieves. So the bulk of the resources, the bulk of the dollars going into this project is a 4% housing tax credit, the low-income housing tax credit, and it's coupled with tax-exempt financing. But there's also really important resources like the county's land donation, like other federal grants that are allocated through the city and the state. So, for example, home partnership grants, community development block grants, those kinds of things will also help support this program in what we call the capital stack, all of the money that goes into constructing the project. But the bulk of the resources, the bulk of the dollars are actually private funds through the Housing Tax Credit Program. And again, the Housing Tax Credit Program is where the federal government allocates a tax credit and a private investor buys those tax credits from us. And we use that money that they buy the tax credits from to actually help build the project. And as a result, we are responsible not only to a private equity investor, but also the state government that manages this program for the federal government. So there's a lot of regulatory oversight for this project, and you'll see some changes that we'll talk about in the resolution as a result of needing to meet the IRS Section 42 tax credit rules. So outside of that funding structure, there are three primary publicly funded goals that this project meets. A place to call home, meeting Missoula's housing needs. That, of course, is our city housing policy recently adopted. Reaching home, our 10-year plan to end homelessness. This project certainly meets those goals through the 30 permanent supportive housing homes that will be located on the Mullen Road site, as well as the goal of including a navigation center on that site. And then the Missoula County Jail Diversion Master Plan stated very specifically that the community is spending enough money in emergency services for folks that are experiencing homelessness and living on the streets to invest strategically in proactive services that will reduce the need for high-cost emergency responses. And that's really what this project helps achieve. Chris, next slide, please. So this is just a brief progress timeline showing where we are. So a year ago, we submitted our tax credit application and we were awarded. Here in 2020, the spring of 2020, we went ahead with additional funding applications, both to the State Department of Commerce as well as the City of Missoula. We are moving forward with our minor subdivision, and that's coordinated through the City of Missoula, and I'll give an additional update later in the presentation. And we've moved forward with various public hearings. We are marching towards a building permit at the end of 2020. We're looking to start construction in the spring of 2021. And then we've got an 18-month build out schedule because we're building over 200 homes here in Missoula, 2 different sites. And it's a fairly long construction schedule. So we'll be looking to lease up in late 2022, which we know we need these homes now. And we're full steam ahead to try to get this accomplished as soon as possible. Chris, next slide, please. So I want to take a few minutes. This is a small font, and I apologize for that, but I wanted to give some ideas of who is going to live here in terms of the incomes that they earn and the rents that they may pay. Additionally, I wanted to note a change in the resolution from this one you're considering today to the one that's already been passed. We requested a change. Previously, the resolution had stated that the 30 permanent supportive housing homes located on the Mullen Road site would serve people earning 30% of the area median income and below. Now, those 30 permanent supportive housing homes, and again, let me just reiterate, on the Mullen Road site, there will be 130 apartments. 30 of those are what's considered permanent supportive housing. That means they will be targeted for people that are currently chronically homeless, living on the streets. Some of the most difficult to house in our community. Those 30 apartments will actually have a permanent supportive housing voucher. They will have rental assistance attached to those. And there will be on-site services from our community partners to make sure that those residents are can maintain their home by various kinds of mental health, behavioral health, physical health, supportive services. And so the reality, however, is that we have folks that actually sometimes earn above 30% area median income, but are still chronically homeless. So in our resolution, we asked for those 30 permanent supportive housing homes. 20 of those will be at 30% area median income and below. And because we have housing trust fund dollars that are federal, that are facilitated through the state, that's a requirement of that federal funding source. However, 10 of those 30 apartments on the Mullen Road site can be allowed for folks up to 50% of the area median income. And this is why this is important. Folks that are living with homelessness, they may have income in the form of Social Security disability. They may have veterans income or other forms of income. If they don't have income already, by actually living at the site, we may be able to connect them with resources that they are eligible for. And the reality is sometimes folks are earning above 30% area median income. And this is something that the Missoula Housing Authority sees quite a bit. And so we do not want to limit those folks from being able to access housing at this site. So this small change in the resolution, which allows us to serve 30 and 50% of the area median income for those permanent supportive housing homes, really gives us the ability to serve actually more people and more flexibility with this project. I wanted to give a couple of illustrations of what this rent chart actually means. So, at 30% area median income, one person earning about $16,500 a year is somebody that is either working part-time or 3/4 time at minimum wage, or they might be, like I said, on Social Security disability income. You can see that at the rent chart that is associated at that area median income, is $391 a month. But again, there's 130 apartments in total on this site. And we are going to be serving people all the way up to 70% of the area median income, which at one person earning $39,000 a year is about $19 an hour, a lot of working professionals. Additionally, two people at 70% area median income is somebody that might be earning about $21, or you have maybe a parent and a child that's that two-person household. And these are the different income tiers that we have to abide by and how those rents correlate. So you can see that we're going to have somebody that is paying as little as $391 a month for maybe a one bedroom, all the way up potentially to $864 for a one bedroom. Again, this is 70% area median income. We showed you the 80% area median income because the tax credit program now allows us to serve a big range of incomes, 20% to 80% area median income. For this project, we're only proposing 30 to 70%, and allowing us, though, 80% area median income in the resolution gives us the flexibility for the next 5 decades that we'll need as we manage this project. So this is a lot of information coming at you. I'm going to stop there and just see if anybody has any questions for me.
Yeah, I actually do, Josh, if you wouldn't mind. Andrea, so as far as the 30% AMI, what if, and just given the population that this is meant to help support, I suspect some of these folks are going to have zero income to apply towards rent. How does that work out in terms of the overall pro forma of how to make this thing work?
That is an excellent question, Dave. Those permanent supportive homes are funded with a voucher, a housing choice voucher, rental subsidy. So when somebody that is chronically homeless, living on the streets, and is eligible to live in one of those 30 apartments, if they're earning zero income, that voucher will pay the entire rent. However, if they're earning $16,000 a year because they receive Social Security disability income, they will pay 1/3 of their income towards rent, just like a Section 8 voucher.
Okay, thanks.
And this is for, sorry, Andrea, this is for both projects, right? I suddenly got confused because I thought families were living at Cooley Project and singles are at Mullen, or what's the breakdown there?
Well, Juanita, that's an excellent question too. So, there will be families living at both sites. However, okay, at the Cooley site, there are larger apartments there. And so we would anticipate larger families living at the Cooley site. And there will be the income range of 50 to 70% at the Cooley site. Whereas on the Mullen Road site, we'll have a much larger range of people living there because of those permanent supportive housing homes. The folks that are living at 30% of the area median income or less, to Dave's point, if they're earning zero, will be living at the Mullen Road site. And those 100 workforce homes, the apartments, the additional apartments on the Mullen Road site, folks can earn all the way up to 70% area median income there as well.
And Andrea, could I add something
Please.
Quickly? This is Lori Davidson with the Missoula Housing Authority. And I just wanted to add that in all of our low-income housing tax credit properties, we typically find that at least 30% of the residents have what we call a tenant-based voucher. So these would not be quite the same as the 30 permanent supportive vouchers, but people who get a voucher from the Housing Authority would choose to live in these apartments. So it's very likely that many people living at either site will have a voucher and will have to have under 50% of AMI. So like Andrea said, we have a wide income range that we'll be serving in both of these properties.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Lori. Appreciate that. So we thought what we would do is give you a little break from some of that complexity and show some pictures. So we broke it up a little bit. So if we don't have any more questions about this.
Andrea, can I ask you a quick question? I'm just wondering what kind of market rate is right now for a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom apartment like the ones we're describing?
A market rate for a 1-bedroom. So right now, what we've seen, and I would have to go look at the most recent data out there, but I want to say it's $795 for a 1-bedroom for the Missoula market, and that was from the National Low Income Housing Out of Reach report. And I am completely and totally tapping into my memory bank for that. And we've seen some interesting, I think we've seen some interesting things recently that are not yet documented. A lot of the information that we can tap into as far as data goes, census data, the National Low Income Housing Coalition report, is a little bit looking backwards. I'd be very curious where we're actually at our point in time in Missoula right now, in our larger Missoula area, given the pressure that the rental market is under and the effective 0% vacancy. Anybody else on the call? Lori, do you have anything to add to that?
Hi, this is Keenan. I can
go ahead.
weigh in. Okay, I can weigh in on that. Just anecdotally, not from the specific studies that Andrea has mentioned, but right now 2-bedroom apartments in Missoula are upwards of 1,100 plus. If you look on Craigslist or any of the listings currently, you're going to pay at least 1,100 for a 2-bedroom, and the 1-bedrooms are a little more than $850 to $900, and we've got a 0% vacancy right now.
Wow.
Yeah, and I agree with Keenan. New payment standards from new FMRs just came out from HUD, and 1-bedroom payment standards are now $824, which is not 100% of market rate. So they're probably upwards of $850.
Wow. Okay. It's a pretty good jump. Thank you for that. Should I go ahead and move on?
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Chris, if you don't mind, the next slide, please. So we wanted to show you some of the progress that our team has made and our design team. Oh, I just got a little message from Ashley Grant that says, from our market study, $960 is the average median income. Is that for a 1-bedroom, Ashley? We'll get confirmation here in a second.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Okay.
1-bedroom, 1-bath.
1-bedroom, 1-bath, market conventional apartment in Missoula, $960. Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a mortgage, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so wanted to give you an example of how the project is progressing, and so this is the Cooley Street elevation. So this again is not the Mullen Road parcel and what's under your decision making today, but wanted to give you an idea of how this is looking, because this is the old Skyview Trailer Park site, and we've had some neighborhood meetings where folks have been able to weigh in on some finishes and overall site layout, and some of the ways that we're treating landscaping and open space. We're really pleased. We're pleased with the way that there are 72 apartments on the Cooley site. It's a pretty intensive use on an entire city block, and we're surrounded by different building types, different multifamily. We've got Burn Street Bistro, so there's some commercial across the way, and some condominiums. There's apartments. There's single-family homes. And there is a manufactured home park across the street from us. And we are trying to acknowledge the different building types while also maximizing the number of homes that we can on this site because of the great need in Missoula. And so Intrinsic Architecture out of Bozeman has designed, I think, what is a very well thought out plan here. And you can see that the different roof elevations give it a sense of, we're really trying to connect with that single family feel in a neighborhood, but it's not single family homes, right? We're not building single family homes here. And so we really wanted to try to give the difference in scale and acknowledge that this neighborhood has intensive build out happening. And so we got some nice comments from surrounding neighbors. I think they were pleased with the thoughtfulness and the approach that we're taking. You can see here that all of the residents have some form of outdoor space. through porches and then different green space on site there. Next slide. So back to the Mullen Road site. This is, something we were talking about, we've presented on in the past, and we wanted to just give another glimpse, of course, of folks that are going to be benefiting from the 30 permanent supportive housing homes there, as well as folks that are going to continue to be living on the street that will access services through the Navigation Center. And what we show here is that a person living in chronic homelessness costs the taxpayer an average of $36,000 a year. And so this is really an excellent investment for our community to see somebody housed and stable and hopefully reducing costs for themselves and for the public. And so our number one priority as a community here are the workforce homes and the permanent supportive housing homes. And we are excited to be able to utilize the housing credit program to build a navigation center on site, basically a community service facility that will be able to be utilized for on-site services for people that are in need of either mental and behavioral health, and can help with not only physical health, job placement, and on the road to finding a home. That is something that within the resolution, we had to change some of that language. And so I want to be able to address that, because local service providers are very committed to this concept, yet without permanent funding sources currently in place, the Navigation Center is something that we are able to build using this tax credit funding through a master lease provision. And Aaron Pehan is on the call and ready to speak to that here shortly. But I do want to address the fact that the resolution itself has amended language in it that says this development aims to provide comprehensive on-site programming through the construction of a navigation center. The previous resolution did say will provide, and we needed to make sure that we had this flexibility in case there was not the ability to actually have a master lease holder for this navigation center. Our tax credit investor and the tax credit financing basically requires this flexibility. We needed to make sure that the county's resolution matched up to our funding requirements. In addition to that, the previous resolution said it will be open 24 hours a day. And we would love to under promise and over deliver on that and make sure that we can be open 24 hours a day. But if this navigation center cannot be because our local service providers don't have the resources necessary to stay open 24 hours a day, we need to make sure that the resolution addresses that. So we do say is capable of being open 24 hours a day. But if it was a mandate within this resolution, we feel that we may set ourselves up for failure if we can't achieve that as a community. And again, we're striving towards that, and that is absolutely our goal, but it is dependent on service provider and leaseholder abilities to do that. Next slide, please. This gives an aerial view of the Mullen Road site plan, and it's really basic, but you can see on the lower half of the slide there is Mullen Road. And it's somewhat hard to read, but you can see that they're just north of that is the irrigation ditch. You can see that the parking lot basically surrounds the three buildings here. Mullen Street that Chris spoke about is to our right here. So you see how it comes into the site, and we're able to accommodate that public right-of-way and easement. So to the far north of the site, you can see that yellow L-shaped building. That's the workforce housing. Those are the 100 apartments for workforce up to 70% of the area median income. And then the blue shaded building to the left of that is the Navigation Center. The idea there, with input from our community service providers and such, is obviously we want to have the Navigation Center front and center for folks that are a lot of foot traffic, maybe walking on foot, coming to the site via mountain line or on bicycle, for there to be the Navigation Center right up in front and easy to access. And then behind the Navigation Center is the permanent supportive housing homes. Those are the 30 apartments that we just talked about that are funded with vouchers that are targeted for folks that are considered chronically homeless, folks that have been living on the street for a number of years and managing potentially mental or behavioral health, potentially substance abuse. And the idea that the permanent supportive housing and the navigation center, their walls touch. There is a door in between there where there can be shared services, but the folks living in permanent supportive homes will have the ability to be removed from folks that maybe, or from the services in the navigation center, or from folks that are accessing the navigation center. We found that that is the best practice being conducted around the country, that permanent supportive housing homes really have the dignity to be separate from what was maybe their past life and experience. And there is quite a bit of on-site security and separate entry doors for the permanent supportive homes than from the navigation center. So the different colors really give an idea there of how the buildings touch. We're efficiency in terms of the building design and construction, yet the uses are really separate, but they don't have to be mutually exclusive. There is some ability for there to be mentorship and the ability for service providers to be able to access different parts of each of the buildings as well as common areas. Next slide, please. This is just a real brief inclusion of our 2-lot minor subdivision. Chris gave a great summary up front. You know, we're already in agency review with the subdivision, and the local jurisdictions have been really excellent to work with in terms of expediting this in order for us to meet our February investor closing, because the idea is that we're closing all the financing in February so we can get started with construction in early spring. Next slide, please. This gives just a quick snapshot of how this project meets our Missoula growth policy. Again, you can see that we're in regional commercial services here. That's the larger parcel of the detention center and what we're subdividing. Thanks, Chris. Next slide. So this is the Mullen Road elevations, and we just showed you that bird's eye view with the different colors. So right now I'm standing on the southwest corner. I'm basically looking at a bird's eye view of the navigation center. That's one story. You can see that there. Separate entry, very easy and accessible. And then immediately to the right, we've got 4 stories there. That is the permanent supportive housing portion of the project. Both of those have outdoor space, and that outdoor space is identified for specific uses. So the permanent supportive housing outdoor space and the navigation center outdoor space will be separate. And that again is based on best use of practitioners from all over the country that have told us the best way to approach a mixed use project like this. And then you can see there's the 4-story L-shaped workforce housing homes right behind it there. Next slide, please. These just give another example of the elevations. We held a public hearing for the subdivision, and we had some local area residents participate, and we were delighted to get a lot of positive feedback from folks living out in the Mullen Road area, that they were just very pleased how the building articulates. There's just interest in the building, and it should really add to the neighborhood. And you know, it's an intensive use. 130 apartments is a lot, and we were really happy to hear that folks felt like the design was sensitive and thoughtful for the neighborhood, and they actually thought it would contribute to the overall area and the build out. So we were really happy to hear that. Next slide, please. So this is where I would love for Erin Pehan to take over the presentation and talk about how she's really leading the collaborative work with local service providers and us as an owner and development team in terms of achieving a substantial community goal of developing the services at a navigation center. So Erin, are you ready to do that?
Sure, I would be happy to. So hello, this is Erin Pehan. I'm the director of the Office of Housing and Community Development for the City of Missoula. And we have been in communication with Andrea and the full development team and the broader community about a navigation center for quite some time. For those of you unfamiliar with the concept, navigation centers are a best practice in providing support and serving individuals who have been living unsheltered or in encampments, oftentimes for years, and have a lot of barriers towards accessing housing and building the relationships that are required to get access to services that will help them move from the streets into affordable, permanent, sustainable housing. As I mentioned, for several months now, we've been engaging in conversations in concert with the development team with service providers about the program design and the operational budget of a potential navigation center. All navigation centers are unique to the community they reside in. Some are 24 hours a day, some aren't. Some serve as secondary shelter, some provide a host of supportive services, including health and behavioral health services. They really are designed to identify and fill gaps in the community and complement other service programming where it exists. Providers that we've been talking to, including the Poverello Center, Open Aid Alliance, and Partnership Health Center, all of whom have been engaged in these conversations from the very beginning, remain committed to this vision and to the need for this service in our community. We've also brought others into the conversation and will continue to do so as we start to think about what this program design might look like. What we've discovered in the past several months and through these conversations are that these organizations, especially and particularly in the time of COVID, simply don't have the capacity to design a program model and an operational funding model that will ensure the navigation center is effective and sustainable long term. So in recognition of this, the city, and more specifically the Office of Housing and Community Development, has offered to step into the role of master leaseholder for the portion of the development that will serve as the navigation center, and to also serve as the macro level operator of the program. What that means is that over the next 6 months, we'll work with the service community and the developers to design programming that will meet the community need, and also, importantly, programming that can exist harmoniously with the other elements of the Trinity development, which Andrea has laid out for you today. Additionally, we will work to create an operational budget to ensure the program is sustainable well into the future. Some of that work will include identifying Medicaid billable models that can support this work and identifying gaps where we are going to need investment from the city and the county and the private sector to ensure the service is available long term. City Council, recognizing how essential the Navigation Center is, has dedicated funding in the city's current budget cycle to support this planning work and to provide us the capacity we need to get that done. The city is not a service provider, which I'm quick to point out, and it's not our intention to operate this program. Our goal at the conclusion of the planning work would be to work alongside the county to draft an RFP that would help us identify a qualified organization that could run the day-to-day services of the Navigation Center. Depending on the programming recommendations, this could be one single provider, or it could be several providers that bring individual programming to the site that's identified as necessary for the Navigation Center to be successful. So with that, I can answer any questions that folks may have.
Aaron, this is Josh. I just want to say, way to go. Great job. Your office stepping up to be the leaseholder, and we're excited to work with you on the RFP piece. That's fantastic that you could do that.
I'll go ahead and step back in here if that's okay and round out the presentation. I want to echo Josh's appreciation. Aaron, we are, as a development team and an ownership group, we are very grateful for the opportunity to work with Aaron and her team with the City Office of Housing and Community Development. It is a really makes sense relationship, And I think it is going to be a way for our local service providers to have a sense of stability, and it is a way for us to tie this navigation center into such larger community initiatives that are already underway. And we just think that this is a really smart and makes sense move. And what I wanted to really point out for this public hearing is that there is a change in the resolution. So the previous resolution that was passed in August of 2019 did not talk about a master lease, and it did not have some of the specificity because at the time we really weren't at that level of detail with the project. But as I mentioned earlier in this presentation, we are using the low-income housing tax credit program through, which is an IRS program, Section 42, and it's pretty explicit. The investor is really explicit about what they need to move forward. And so the resolution that the county, that the Board of County Commissioners, what you have in front of you today, solves for that, in that it states that the goal of our project and the team here is to find a qualified tenant to occupy a community service facility. That's actually a very specific term in Section 42, the Housing Tax Credit Program. And we are all marching forward with the intent that that community service facility is the navigation center, and that the master leaseholder is local government. If for some reason that was not able to be achieved, and we don't believe that to be the case because we have seen the commitment from local elected officials, including yourselves, it would revert to resident community space. That's a requirement by the tax credit program. We need to be able to have a backstop, or we would not necessarily be able to fund the construction of it with tax credit financing. So this change in the resolution really allows the necessary flexibility for us as a community to continue forward with funding this initiative through the tax credit program and meet all of the requirements of Section 42 and our investor partners. So, you know, please be assured that we're moving forward with the absolute best intentions to do this. And if it needed to convert to resident community space, then it would be utilized well for those 130 folks living on site. Not that they wouldn't use the navigation center as well, they may, but that's really the needed change here in the resolution. So I wanted to overly emphasize that and see if the commissioners or anybody on the call had any questions about that.
I do not. Thanks. That was a great explanation.
Okay, thank you. Real quickly, the next slide is just a couple more elevation shots. It gives you an idea of what the front door of that navigation center would look like. And lastly, and this might be hurting your eyes, but the last slide is a bird's eye view. And Chris, I don't know if you can zoom in on that. Even though there's a lot yet to be identified, our project team has gone out, as well as other community members and service providers here in Missoula. Some of the folks on this call, including Commissioner Slotnick, also traveled to some sites in neighboring states to see how navigation centers actually were designed and built. You can see here that we are contemplating a medical clinic on site. So we've been, you know, and Aaron's team and our team will continue to meet with Partnership Health and folks that are really interested in providing services here. And so we are moving forward with not only schematic design, but also at some level construction design documents to move forward with this navigation center. You can see that there is an entryway, community room. We're trying to build the space with as much flexibility as possible. We are intending that there be services on site. You can see the food, miscellaneous storage. This is not going to be, you know, a food pantry or somewhere where you would get full-blown meals like you may at the Poverello Center. But we do know that folks are going to be coming here hungry. And so we need to have some form of sack lunches or some way for folks to be able to get some food. And, you know, again, a lot of this will be determined after some of the service plan details are figured out, as Aaron mentioned. But you can see there are clinic exam rooms. We've got open meeting spaces for staff and for lockers for folks to be able to store some of their personal needs. Some of the things that we learned while we were visiting other sites is that, you know, folks that are living on the streets are sometimes living, well, of course, they're living with all their valuables and pictures of their kids or pictures of their parents. And birth certificates, those kinds of things. Sometimes I need somewhere safe to store those. And so there will be lockers and laundry on site, things of that nature. So, you know, folks have the best ability to come and have a sense of, you know, a sense of home really for as much as they can, even though this is the navigation center is not housing specifically. So with that, I'll go ahead and bring us to the last page, which is if folks are interested in learning more, please reach out to the Missoula Housing Authority or Homeward. Again, Blue Line Development is the third entity here. These are just the owners that are mentioned. Blue Line Development is our co-developer and working hard to see this project to fruition. And Commissioner Slotnick, you had asked for public comment, and I couldn't figure out how to get my microphone to work in time. But I wanted to mention that I want to thank the Board of County Commissioners and the staff so much in your vision of really moving the needle on significant community goals. And this project really embodies a lot of that. One of the things I wanted to make the comment on during public comment is 2 other initiatives that you funded recently have been the landlord liaison position here at Homeward, which is a role to help support landlords who are willing to rent homes to those that have higher barriers. In addition, you also funded the risk mitigation program, and that is a risk fund that hopefully incentivizes landlords to rent to folks with higher barriers. And if for some reason there is a challenge with those folks, there's $1,000 per property partner that we can help offset the cost of if there's damage to a unit or rent that's not paid beyond the deposit. That program just initiated here in September. We just put an email splash out about it this week. And I wanted to mention that during public comment, and I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to do that, but I just wanted to thank the commissioners for your foresight and your vision and, you know, really putting resources where you see there to be an opportunity for change. So thank you.
Thanks for saying all that, Andrea.
You bet. And that concludes our presentation today.
Thanks, Andrea and Aaron and Keenan and everyone for that. Commissioners, with that, I would ask you to consider taking public comments on this resolution, and then I can put up the proposed staff motion when you're ready for that.
All right. As is almost always the best thing to do, we will listen to you, Chris. So let's take some public comment on this before we jump to a resolution. Anybody like to say anything?
Almost as much public comment as our $180 million budget.
Well, then let's, instead of burning daylight here, let's jump to the resolution piece of this.
I am so excited to get moving on this. So yeah, I move to adopt a resolution of intent to grant up to 5.28 acres at 2340 Mullen Road for rental homes that are affordable, subject to the subject to the reversionary clause listed in the resolution.
I'll second that, and I'll just say a big thanks to Homeward, Blue Line Development, the Missoula Housing Authority, and the City of Missoula for their partnership on this. Folks sometimes ask us what we're doing by way of housing and by what are we doing by way of addressing the needs of the most vulnerable in our community. And I think this is the epitome of that, and I look forward to a future groundbreaking here at some point.
Absolutely. I want to echo those thanks to Homeward, the Housing Authority, and to Blue Line. Just great work, and really want to give a big shout out to Aaron Pehan's office for stepping up. Finding a leaseholder for the Navigation Center has been an obstacle, and it's been something I know in all of our minds, like, well, maybe we should do that. Could we do it? Kind of batting it in circles, and there you go. Aaron's just doing it. So well done. And I look forward to working with your office, Aaron, on the RFP and being partners in seeing this to fruition. So it's an honor to be part of it. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And thanks, Chris, for putting together this nice type presentation.
Happy to do that. I would love to take credit, but it entirely goes to Andrea Keenan and their team who was able to put that together. You'll see I had 3 really basic PowerPoint slides, and they had beautiful pictures.
Well, you did it, and you're up next. We're going to talk about our interlocal on the fuel tax.
You're stuck with me for one last thing. Yes, I apologize for taking so much of your time today. Good afternoon again, commissioners. As you know, the voters of Missoula County during the month of June elected to have a local option motor vehicle fuel excise tax. That is a lot to say, but it is basically a local option 2-cent gas tax. As you'll recall, 2 cents is the cap. It cannot go up from 2 cents. That is the maximum that the voters are allowed to impose in the county. That tax went into effect in the middle of September. And recently, the city and the county concluded their negotiations on the required interlocal agreement that sets out how those funds will be divided between the county and the city, which is the only incorporated entity inside Missoula County. If in the future another area incorporates, we will need to revisit this interlocal agreement at that time to include them. But at this time, because there are only the 2 local taxing authorities, and only 1 incorporated city inside the county, the division is 50% to the county and 50% to the city. That's what's in the interlocal before you today. This interlocal has one small anomaly from a standard interlocal that you will see. It has a unilateral termination clause, which means the county, as the taxing entity in this case, can end the interlocal without the consent of the city. And the main reason for that is because if another area incorporates, the county is the one who's responsible for making sure that we have an interlocal that would then incorporate distributing funds to that other local entity. So it's a little different than a standard interlocal where we have to get together and agree to end it. And that main reason for having that is so that the county, should another area incorporate, has the ability to fulfill its statutory obligations around that. But other than that, it is just like a standard interlocal where we work cooperatively with the city and all of our partners for that. And again, the distribution is 50% to the county and 50% to the city as that money comes in. Tyler Granat, I just want to extend some personal thanks here to Tyler, whose staff has worked tirelessly on putting together what I think is a very easy online system for our folks who collect this, which is collected at the level of at the point of sale. So that those gas stations and fuel facilities can easily report that and calculate and get that process relatively smooth and easy to operate. That is an especially high hurdle for us, as you can imagine, to do, and for his staff to have done during this time of COVID, where we can't really get everybody into a room and have some of the conversations that we would normally have. So I just wanted to extend some thanks to Tyler and his staff for doing that, because not an easy lift for them either. So with that, I do have the recommended motion for that, which I will put up on the screen. But of course, I'm happy to answer any questions about the interlocal if there are those. The city of Missoula passed this at their Monday night meeting. So the city has authorized the mayor to sign. And so assuming that it is adopted by the commission, we will get that around for signature to the city and the county.
Great. Thanks, Chris. All right, doesn't sound like we have questions. 50-50 is a good deal. This is perfect. And I want to do a shout out to all that helped work on this. It took more than a year to pull this off. So it's really thrilling that we're here right now.
Yeah, I will concur with that.
Does look like we might have someone who would like to comment from the public. So I just wanted to.
Did you say we do, Chris? Someone is wanting to comment?
I'm not sure if Mr. Forsting's camera came on. I just wasn't sure if he wanted to comment on this item. So
I'm up next. I'm ready
okay.
I'm ready for the next one.
I just didn't want to cut you off. So.
Well, I guess seeing no public comment, I would move that we adopt the interlocal agreement between the County of Missoula and the City of Missoula for the distribution of the voter-approved local option motor vehicle fuel excise tax.
Second.
Great. Thanks so much, everybody. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank you very much, commissioners.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, this next hearing is on a resolution of intent for planned variation, and Matt Heimel will present.
Actually, Matt is out sick. He's not feeling good today, so I am taking it over for him.
You get 2 in a row.
I get 2 in a row, yeah. So let me pull up, Matt basically had everything done. So let me pull up his PowerPoint here, and then I'll go through everything. Get my screen. And make you guys bigger again. Okay, are you guys seeing the screen, the PowerPoint there?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is a request by Tri-East Incorporated, representing by Paul with IMEG. They are proposing to rezone properties at 3705 Highway 200 East. And I'll go here. So just, hopefully it goes over. There we go. Okay, so just some project history, just so you guys are aware. So in December 2011, the property was rezoned from CC2, which is our general commercial zone, to CR3 residential with a planned variation on it. The planned variation was intended to provide attached housing units with adequate yard building areas. Here, early 2020, staff had meetings with IMEG and Paul to discuss the potential CR3 residential special exception permit for storage units. But staff, we later determined that the planned variation supersedes the CR3 uses. And so the only option was for developing storage units would be to either rezone the property back to a commercial zone or repeal the planned variation. And so in September, I'll get to the planning board here in a minute as well. So here's the location for the property. It's at East Missoula, Highway 200 coming up this way. I've got a couple slides here that kind of show more in detail, Michigan Avenue, Minnesota Avenue, kind of where it's at. So the gas station's up here in the front and kind of this parking area in the back. So they're proposing to zone the property to CC1, which is our neighborhood commercial zone. The site is approximately 2.3 acres. The intent of the CC1 zoning district is to provide convenient shopping for a limited neighborhood market involving retail enterprises, professional and personal services. And they are proposing the commercial zoning designation to allow for commercial use to comply with the neighborhood center land use designation within our growth policy. So here's another site. Sorry, it's hard when it's not my presentation slides. I forget which ones are in order. Here's the land use designation slide. Sorry about that. So just some general site geography and characteristics. The property is surrounded by uses that include both residential and commercial uses. The proposed rezone would apply to the property that fronts roads that are classified as local streets. As you can see from the imagery on the site there, the site is currently developed with a paved parking area and associated with the adjacent gas station and the casino that is currently also owned by the applicant. The site is located within the East Missoula Rural Fire District. It's also within the boundaries for the East Missoula Sewer. Sewer is provided by the City of Missoula with a delayed annexation for this area. The site is outside of any FEMA mapped floodplain. It's not within the 1 mile buffer from the Zone A floodplain designation. And then as you can see from the site, it's within our Missoula area land use element that was adopted in 2019 as an amendment to our 2016 Missoula County growth policy. And as I mentioned, that land use element designates the property as neighborhood commercial. So let me go here, getting towards the criteria. Oh, so here's the summary of what that neighborhood commercial growth policy designation is and what it means. And then getting into our criteria for review. So as I said, they'd be going to CC1 is their proposed request. So we reviewed the project in conformance with the zoning requirements that come out of the Montana Code, as well as our zoning regulations. And I'll just hit the highlights that are kind of within this slide. But the proposed zoning is compatible with our land use element and our growth policy. The intended use and potential permitted uses within the CC1 zoning district conform to the objectives of our land use element and the intent of the zoning regulations. The proposed rezoning takes into consideration the context of the area, the adjacent land uses, and the standards that are compatible, and has standards that are compatible with our zoning regulations. The zoning is designed to promote public health, public safety, and general welfare of the neighborhood. It's also will provide density, lot area, building height, and setback restrictions to allow adequate light and air between the buildings. The proposed zoning considers and promotes compatible growth in East Missoula that has a concentration of commercial and higher density residential developments. It doesn't appear the proposal will have any adverse effects on motorized or non-motorized transportation system. It matches the character of the district and its suitability for particular uses. Any new proposed use will be required to meet the overall density, yard height, setbacks, all of the development standards that are within the zoning district, and they'll have to provide that at the time of a building permit and a zoning compliance permit. And finally, any required landscaping, lighting, screening, parking spaces, pedestrian circulation, all of that will be addressed as well through a zoning compliance permit at the time that they actually want to build a structure on the property as well. So we did notice adjacent landowners within 300 feet of the property and also advisory agencies, and I'll get into those comments. Matt also placed a notice of the proposed zoning within 6 locations prior to the planning board hearing. Let me get back to the comments and I'll go over those. Super. So the agency comments, MDT, the Missoula County Clerk and Recorder's Office and the Floodplain Administrator stated they had no concerns or comments with the request. The Water Quality District did comment that they had no objections to the proposal, but that drainage should be managed by infiltration, and basically going through our Public Works manual for stormwater drainage, etc. Missoula City County Health Department commented that they had no concerns as the project served by contract sewer and will continue to be so. And then we did receive one comment letter actually in support of the property, or excuse me, of the project from a neighboring property owner. So no other comments from the public have been received at this time.
Bailey, this is Dave. Do you happen to know whether the East Missoula Community Council was contacted about this proposal?
I do not know. Tim or Paul, do either of you happen to know that? Maybe Paul might know here.
It's my understanding they were, but we don't have any comments from them, so I'm not sure if they missed it or something. But
okay.
It is kind of odd that they wouldn't have commented because I would.
Yeah, they're very active.
Yeah, it would be highly peculiar if they did not. So
you know what I would say, guys, for whatever it's worth, they didn't comment on my other storage use project that was out the bigger field there. I was also expecting it there, and I didn't get it there either. So I don't know if there's something else going on there. Or, that's just me, having done a little work in the area.
I'm trying to pull up Matt's file here to see if I can. Oops, probably gonna pull up on right in front of your screen. Let's see. Pull it off. It doesn't look like they're listed on this agency notice.
If we wait or postpone to reach out and ask them for comment, does this throw a big wrench in the process? I do feel a little odd that we haven't heard from them, but I don't want to hold up the process either. I can see Paul.
Well, yeah, I guess I will chime in. I would not have any qualms with holding it up if there's no statutory requirements. We're not at that point yet. I guess I'd still want to hear from the applicant once Bailey's done here, but I think it is important, given how much how actively engaged the East Missoula Community Council has been with the whole rezoning project and the land use element. It would be highly unfortunate if for whatever reason they just were not aware of this. And I think the 300 feet statutorily required notice area is somewhat artificial.
So it does appear on the agency notice that's in. Now, I don't have access to Matt's email, so I can't verify for sure, but he does have East Missoula Community Council is listed on the August 11th, 2020 memo to the agency, other agencies. So it appears based on this memo, I do believe they were contacted, but I don't have access to his actual emails to check to make sure about that. Okay, so I'll continue here for a quick question. Let's see, I think I was pretty much done actually, other than just staff was recommending approval of that request. So unless, I guess if Paul wants to add anything.
Yeah, thanks, Bailey. I'll start there. Paul Forsting, IMEG. Let me just start with the East Missoula Community Council. Bailey said that Matt put up 6 signs. He posted 6 signs here. This is as central to East Missoula as we can get. So I think we're absolutely willing to wait and add more time if there's an perception that the notice period hasn't been long enough here. But I think we're going into a notice period too, and so I wonder if we're not providing a notice here now that we could then work into, and if East Missoula had a comment, then we could go backwards from there. Because I do believe we're kind of making a notice of resolution here, so maybe there's an opportunity just to keep it going, but definitely make sure we don't miss comments from them. Taking a step back, this site is, like I said, central into the East Missoula. The gas station represents, one of the central pieces of East Missoula. It's surrounded by parking lot. What's next to a big gas station like this? Well, in this case, we have parking and truck storage. We have 2 roads that kind of cut through the middle of that parking lot. Michigan Avenue goes right through it. And so whatever happens here, our goal, I think it'll bring some order to this area. Stepping back, Bailey did a really good job of presenting this project here. It's got to be tough to come in the day of. I know I often feel sick these days when I've got to give the presentation. I just don't have anybody to fill in for me. So I appreciate that Bailey's here, and she did a really good job. Adding a little bit to the story, I wasn't involved at the initial time when IMEG approached the planning office, nor was Bailey, nor was Matt. It was actually Jason Rice, my coworker, Christina Laux, who no longer works here, and Lauren from the planning office, who's no longer there. Tim might have been involved, and so I think the only reason I'm really kind of pointing that out is I think Bailey did a much better job of describing kind of the story and the history than I did, because I wasn't there. One thing I'd point out is in those meetings they discussed a storage unit facility, and I wasn't there to discuss that, and I haven't been, there hasn't been any change in my marching orders to get this rezoned. But I looked at that and I said, gosh, I wish I could just change that, just take that off my little sheet here. It doesn't matter to the rezone. And if I just don't tell anybody that there's a storage unit, maybe that'll go away. Because I knew today, however long it took, that I'd be talking about it, and it would make it much more difficult just because we had introduced the truth here. But I think that's what they want to do here. And so I don't love storage units. I don't know that anybody does. I think they're, it's really hard to get up and say, oh gosh, I'm going to go support them. I'm going to go out, fight for this storage unit project. But for whatever reason they're needed, they seem to be complementary to what Missoula's doing with their housing. For every small housing project we get within the city, we seem to have a demand for storage units. And I don't like that, but I also have a really big house that doesn't need one, and I used to have a storage unit, and so I can understand what's going on there. So like I said, I wish I didn't have to. I wish we could say, oh, we're just talking about a zoning here and it's going to change it to commercial. But I mean, that's what they've said, and nothing's changed. And so I do think the storage will be here. I understand what difficult position that puts you in, commissioners. But I also like to say that our zoning is in support. It's in complete alignment with the growth policy. And that's really what we're looking at here. When we talk about zoning, that's the main criteria, is to make sure it matches. and it's not creating a public health and safety issue. And as unsightly as maybe, as unfortunate as storage against housing is, and on your main drag seeing it, I haven't seen that it creates a conflict for housing. It's been permitted. I've watched them get permitted all across in our community and everybody's neighborhoods, and so it's not ideal, but it is something that isn't necessarily in conflict with the adjacent residential, and it's in line with the commercial. So that's what I'll add, and I'll just look forward to hearing what you have to say about it.
Commissioner, can I make one quick note? I forgot to give you what happened at the planning board meeting, if you don't mind. Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't want to interrupt. So the planning board met on September 1st and considered this request. They did ultimately recommend approval of the request on a 6-2 vote, with one member abstaining because she didn't show up in time to hear the beginning part of the presentation discussion. So she didn't feel like she had adequate enough information to make a decision. So she abstained. So it was recommended approval 6-2.
Dave, Juan, do you want to?
Yeah. I've got a question or two. So Bailey, and I guess first off, thanks Bailey for stepping up at the 11th hour here and helping out at the last minute. So if you need to punt this to anyone else from CAPS who's out there, that's fine. So, and admittedly, this falls into a little bit of the category of the cart before the horse for me, in that who knows where the cart is, Josh, but in any event, I would love that we were standing here today having already updated our zoning code, made map amendments zoning wise in East Missoula, but that's not where we are, obviously. Having said that, any thoughts from you, Bailey, or any of your colleagues in terms of if this rezoning request was not coming before us today, what is it likely to what would it likely be rezoned when we finish up the rezoning update to the regulations and make map amendments? Because the one thing I'd want to avoid is making a change to zoning now that, lo and behold, we're going to find ourselves it being out of sync somehow with the ultimate zoning that we would have otherwise adopted here.
It's a great question.
Yeah, and that's a very great question. I understand exactly where you're coming from with that. Honestly, I don't know the answer to that, mainly because I know the draft zoning is still going back and forth and things are changing. I mean, even as staff, it's really still with the consultants at this time. So I don't know exactly, I haven't done, I guess, the research to go in and see what zoning would be the most compatible with it, because they are changing so much of it. So I don't have a good answer, I guess, to that question at this moment, with going back and doing some more digging and looking at some of those, what the steering committee is really looking at with those changes. I don't know if Tim has anything as well. I know he's probably just listening to the conversation. Yeah, that would take some research for sure.
Is this what didn't Karen talk about, saying this is the closest to what is being proposed? Am I confusing
I don't remember.
projects? Well, is Tim on?
Yeah, I believe you're correct, Juanita, that Karen felt that this was about as close as you can get to this land use designation with a zoning designation with what we have.
With what we currently have.
Yeah.
And I guess therein lies the rub for me, is what we currently have is likely not what we're going to have ultimately a number of months down the road. And I get it that is a little bit obscure what the zoning designations might be, but nonetheless, it puts us in a bit of an awkward place right now because, and I get it, Paul, as far as what is being proposed mini storage or storage wise probably does match to some extent the extremely eclectic character of the district, if you will, but what's on the ground right now may not necessarily align with what the vision is for the core of East Missoula. I mean, there is a very nice storage unit and complex right down the street, and so I don't want to completely knock storage units, because there is a role and a place for them, and the one that I'm thinking of right along Highway 200, they've been great neighbors, I think. But there is also this issue of what is the long-term vision of East Missoula, and I think it's a work in progress. We've got a Highway 200 corridor study currently underway. We've got the zoning update that is forthcoming. So it's a bit of an awkward place.
Yeah, I just am wondering if the storage units comply with neighborhood commercial, and neighborhood commercial may indeed match what the future zoning might look like, even though the vision for neighborhood commercial in this area would be something that is much more conducive to people actually living in that space and creating a livable, walkable community, kind of raising the profile of East Missoula to some degree. And even though this complies, and probably we have no legal ground to go anywhere with this, I imagine storage units in the heart of East Missoula are not actually the vision that people were thinking of when they thought this would be great to be neighborhood commercial. My joke here for you, Paul, was that there's been lots of concern about the gentrification of East Missoula, and this will make sure that doesn't happen. And you can feel good about your work today, that you're keeping East Missoula available for people who don't have a lot of money. So.
It looks like Paul has his hand up.
I do, and it's not just to laugh out loud. It's to it's to say that what we're asking for is a commercial use here, guys, and that's what I think is being lost here, and it maybe get uncomfortable here, because ultimately we want it for storage, but we're surrounded by commercial. We're the only, as I click and I look at it on my screen, we're the only residential, and we're actually intermixed, and the only reason we are residential is because somebody got to changing the zoning to it, and you could say, well, that's what it should be, but it's really it's unzoned on one side of us where the residential is, and then everything else is in this huge corridor of an actual, I don't even think it's neighborhood commercial, it's a more heavy and dense commercial, and that's what I asked for. I asked for just to be compliant with what was in there. The planning board said, or excuse me, the planning department said, let's go back and do one back to this neighborhood commercial. And so I guess from just a bigger picture here, anybody in this row can do exactly what we're saying along the whole line, and that extends all the way to the city of Missoula and even further to Staples Avenue, right there. And so it is, it does feel weird. It does feel like we're asking for something different. And let me also add too that when that zoning changes, we'll be brought along with it. I mean, we're just asking for the commercial use that the land use plan calls for here, and it's my opinion that land use plan would rezone us to commercial anyways. Now, will that commercial permit any type of storage unit in its allowances? I don't know, and that's what we're kind of debating here in a weird way. But I guess I really feel comfortable that we're moving to a commercial, and so I hope it's not as doesn't taste as bad as long as we're not, when we talk about these zoning things, it's really unfortunate. Oftentimes people will just throw out what type of use you're doing because they can change their use tomorrow. It's going to open up a suite of uses.
Right.
But like I said, we know it might be storage, and so I'm not going to hide from that.
So a question for Paul or Bailey, and I don't know that there's any better taste in my mouth now than previously, but what's the history going back to 2011? And I think that's what one of the original earlier slides noted. What was the rationale of the zoning? What precipitated that change at the time? What was envisioned at the time that inspired this change?
I don't know that specifically, other than my guess is that they were trying to provide a residential option at that point, which maybe could be due to just costs in order to do it, might not be feasible to do something like that. But I don't specifically know the history, and I'd have to go back and do some digging into that 2011 plan variation file to see if I could find something.
Paul, do you have any idea, or
I don't. I'm sorry. It predates our firm. I think they worked with
that's
TJ. Yeah.
fine. And so refresh me. What can happen on this parcel right now? What are the limitations of uses right now?
Right now, it's zoned the CR3 residential with this plan variation. So basically, the plan variation is for attached housing units, you know, just like it says, with adequate yard and building areas. So that supersedes just the standard R3 zoning. So really, I guess from my understanding is that they can't do any of the uses in the CR3. They'd either have to repeal the plan variation or use the plan variation is pretty much it in order to do any other uses that are even in the CR3 district currently.
Or they can use it as just a massive slab of asphalt, which is more
the parking. Yeah, I mean, what it is right now, it's parking spaces, so it can just stay that way. Yeah.
So basically, this is going from a residential to a commercial, and it's most likely consistent with the land use map and planning and what future zoning would be. And the part that kind of bums me out a little bit is not that the zoning isn't consistent, but that the vision isn't consistent, and vision isn't incorporated into zoning. And that's sort of where the conflict is here. I see the kind of the general aesthetics of this specific use matching with what the hope for when this zoning happened. And it doesn't seem like we have much ground to stand on there. And the best hope would be someday somebody buys this storage unit and storage unit complex and turns it into a series of shops and restaurants and interesting things that actually add to the life and vibrancy of East Missoula.
Let me interrupt there and say there is a best hope that maybe somebody sees the vision sooner, and that this has taken long enough where other visions could come together. You know, I can emphasize that, guys, too. I mean, that's what the planning board wanted me to do that too. So
you're saying this isn't going to be a storage unit by Halloween?
I don't think so. I don't know that to be the case, but they have a lot of plans, and you guys would have to approve it. I mean, there is that. You have to approve it still. There's still a use that your internal office has to approve for it. So there is that.
Yes. So storage units in the CC1, it's a conditional use, but it's not a special exception, which is the difference. The special exception goes to the Board of Adjustment as just a conditional use. It's just done basically internally during their building permit process. There's a list of like special provisions basically, or extra stuff that they have to show that they are meeting in order for our office to sign off on their building permit. So just for that.
So then who does the approving on the conditional use?
That's through CAPS.
So just CAPS? I mean, would it go to planning board or come to the BCC? Just be you?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I was recently traveling through Southeast Washington, and I drove by a mini storage unit, and I noticed that they had incorporated a coffee shop into one of the units. So perhaps there's an opportunity for mixed use even at that. But also, while we were talking, I did reach out to Lee Bridges in East Missoula. She said that, and I don't think this was necessarily on behalf of the community council in East Missoula, but on her own behalf at least, she did respond to the solicitation for comment, and she responded that she had no comment. So take that for what it's worth.
Okay, well then.
Bailey, do we have a motion?
Yes, I can put that back up. Sorry, I had it up, and then I realized you guys were talking, so I was moving slides around for you. There you go.
Yeah, this was a good discussion, and yeah, this is the direction we're heading because we want commercial and we want vibrancy to be here, and like Paul was saying, potentially this won't have to be a storage unit, but so I'm going to make the motion that we adopt the resolution of intent to rezone the property zoned CR3 with the Canyon Gates Ole's plan variation to CC1 neighborhood commercial be approved based on the findings of fact contained in the staff report, public testimony, and written comment. And Dave, really appreciate that you reached out to Lee.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, with some significant reservations, I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Oh, any
Aye.
comment?
Oh,
Yep.
yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay.
Aye.
Hi. So Bailey, I just, my only added 2 cents here is that when you guys look at this conditional use, and if there's a way to dig in on really what if it had been expressed anywhere in print, what the vision was for this area. And look at that.
Okay. I will make notes for that. I'll
Thank
let Matt know.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us, Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Hey, Commissioners, this is John Hunt. I think this was sort of alluded to by Bailey and Paul, but really by what you did was pass a notice of intention to rezone. This will be published, this resolution will be published on Sunday in the Missoulian, and there will be other public notice of this resolution of intention. And then there's a 30-day period where you can receive comment and protest from interested individuals, and then after that 30-day period, you will have an opportunity to adopt the final resolution to rezone. And the statute says that you may adopt that resolution in your discretion. So, I just point that out. Your hands aren't necessarily tied. I think the discussion was excellent today in terms of understanding what the limitations with this property, but just to let you guys know that.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
So I appreciate that you're adding this. It does make me feel a little better.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Bailey, can we just make sure that the East Missoula Community Council specifically gets notification in the next round?
I'd love to ask them to take this up.
Yeah. Here you go.
Yes.
Yeah, I will make a note on that. And I know I had talked to Matt. We were kind of looking at the calendar. And so, the earliest that it could make a commissioner meeting, I think, is the end of October. It was like the last one. So, you're looking at like very possibly the end of October, beginning of November for sure, before it would get back to you guys. So.
Okay.
That's
So,
all.
Paul, there's room to dream big.
Yeah.
Let us know that.
Thank you.
Encourage your folks to go big, Paul.
Well, I don't like gentrification, Josh. So you got me there.
Good. There you got it.
Bring us a gravel pit.
A gravel pit ringed in storage units. That'll keep riffraff out.
And Josh, before we go on, I wonder if Deputy County Attorney John Hart has anything else that he would like to share with us.
I don't know.
I don't know either. John, what else are we not aware of here?
Comes to mind, commissioners. I'm all ears, though. I'm always. I like to entertain questions from the outfield. So
that was good. You really added to this. I wasn't aware that we'd get that next look, and I'm really thrilled that we get a next look, and would love to make sure, if as much as we possibly can, that the East Missoula folks really take a look at this and tell us what they think.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. All right, Bailey, you get to do another one.
I do. You get me again. Yay.
More storage.
I think
for more storage. I know. I'm like,
better than storage unit is RV storage. Really.
Yeah.
But there's housing that goes with this one.
There is. Yeah. So hold on, let me get everything set up here. I hate it. Like once I show my screen, it minimizes everybody. So I like to see your shining faces. Okay, so you guys can see my screen again, hopefully this time. Okay, so this is a proposal for the Okie Creek Buildings for Lease or Rent project. It is at 9070 Highway 10 West of the Y area along Highway 10 West. It is a proposal from Corey Brown, represented by 406 Engineering, to build 3 new open air buildings that would cover 280 parking spaces, and then 271 additional uncovered parking spaces. And I'll go to the request just to see, so you guys can see where we're talking about here as I kind of describe the site. It'll help, I think it'll be a little easier. So location, so the previous one, you throw on my little laser pointer here. The previous one we had talked about basically about a month ago, right at the beginning of the month, was way down here. That was that one. So just kind of giving kind of a context of where we're at. This is the Trap Club that's out there on Highway 10 West. So we're looking right up here at this property. So just some background on the property. That it is currently vacant. It's about 15.5 acres. It is unzoned. It's outside of the FEMA map floodplain. It's accessed off of Highway 10 West. And there is a 60-foot wide private road and utility easement that is adjacent to the property. They are also proposing a shop with a manager's office and living quarters proposed as part of the storage unit project. The applicant was proposed received approval for a family transfer exemption, and I'll show the site plan here in a minute that'll explain this too. And that was approved back in July for around 4.5 acres to split off. That is the location for the future single family home that they're showing on the plan. And they haven't recorded that yet. Obviously, it just got approved here a couple months ago, so they're still working on that requirement. And then so the remaining 11 acres will encompass the proposed storage unit facility. So we are reviewing this under our buildings for lease or rent regulations that were adopted in August of 2013, and that involves new construction in unzoned areas. And they're required for review under the buildings for lease or rent because they are proposing more than 30 units in a single building or structure at this point. And then there's 4 buildings total. So you have the 3 storage buildings and then the manager's shop for sure is within that. So here's kind of an overall site plan. And I've got another next one that kind of zooms in a little bit more, but here's Highway 10 down here. This is the 60-foot wide public access easement that comes up. Granted, north is over here. This is north, just to rotate everybody. So these are the 3 storage buildings, or should say open air storage buildings. This is the manager's shop. And then this is the future single family home. So this is where that family transfer exemption, this is the portion, that 4.5 acres that was approved in July. Here's a zoomed in just a little bit more so you can kind of see where the storage is. This is their storm, one of their retention storm ponds I'll get to, and another one over here, even though they kind of look like buildings, but they're not. And so, yeah, so these are the 3 buildings, manager's shop, and then you can see all the additional parking that's surrounding it as well. So getting into the review criteria. So the review criteria, I've got it kind of listed out what we review with the buildings for lease or rent regulations, and I'll just kind of hit the highlights of each criteria from my staff report. As I said, the property is accessed from Highway 10 West off of a privately maintained road. It's outside of the air stagnation zone. Stormwater will be managed by the proposed landscaping around the facility and the 2 retention ponds that I showed you on the site plan. We did receive comment from the Water Quality District, recommends that the consultant use the Missoula County Public Works Manual and the reference storm events to design the stormwater management facilities. As far as human impacts and the human population, the property, it is surrounded, or excuse me, the property surrounding the subject property are utilized for existing residential and agricultural uses and are also unzoned. The site plan does show a small landscaped area consisting of trees along the western property line, separating the proposed commercial area from the existing and the proposed residential dwellings. But no official landscaping plan was submitted. So we are recommending a condition of approval that the project be in substantial compliance with the site plan. We did notify adjacent property owners within 300 feet of the property on August 24th. I had one email that was received with questions on the proposal. It wasn't specific, it was comments or just questions, but I did include it in your packet. So it was the only public comment questions that I got on the project. And so that was attached for you guys. Growth policy compliance. So the property is designated as planned neighborhood under our 2019 Missoula area land use element, which, as I had mentioned previously, is an amendment to our growth policy. The designation of planned neighborhood is defined as a land use that is predominantly residential, although secondary uses may include small-scale commercial in limited locations. The character of the planned neighborhood includes commercial buildings sited along arterial or collector roads, providing clusters of limited commercial activity. Water, wastewater. So the applicant is not proposing any of the 3 storage buildings to have water or wastewater facilities, but obviously the proposed shop with the living quarters would be connected to or would be containing water and wastewater facilities, as well as the future single family homes. So we did send notice to the County Environmental Health Department, and they did give a comment back that the existing sanitation approval will need to be re-reviewed for the proposed commercial use on the property. Access to the site, as I mentioned, is from a 60-foot wide private road easement. We did reach out for comment from MDT, just wondering about their approach onto Highway 10. They did state that the applicant would need to apply either for a new approach permit or update their existing approach permit for the access, using it for commercial use as well. It would be reviewed by MDT, and then if any highway mitigation is required, it would be the responsibility of the owner developer to do that. But they did not foresee any major mitigation requirements at this time for the storage unit based off the known kind of traffic that they see for this type of facility. The property, as far as medical, fire protection, it's within 2.5 miles from the nearest Frenchtown Rural Fire District, which we found out that last time was on Lady Slipper Lane is the closest one. We haven't received any comments from the Missoula County Fire Inspector, and the property is outside of the FEMA mapped floodplain, as I mentioned before. So staff is recommending approval of the request with 2 conditions of approval, and so I've included that on the slide that you can see in front of you. And I know the applicant and the representative are here for this meeting as well to answer any questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Bailey, I'm sorry, you were able to respond to Mr. Cummings' questions? Is that what you,
yeah,
okay.
I did send a notice. Yeah, and I actually believe he's on the line here today, so he might want to give some public comment as well. Okay. But I did respond to his questions, and I'm happy to go through them if you want me to.
If he's on the line, you're on the line.
This is Bob Cummins, and I would like you to go. I would like you to go through those questions if you could.
Great.
Yeah, thanks. Could you do that, Bailey?
I can, or do you want to hear the applicant, if the applicant had anything to add to my presentation, and then I can definitely go through them all as well, whatever.
Great. Do it that way. Thank you. Mr. Brown?
Okay.
Yeah, hello, this is Corey. I could be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Yeah, I don't, this is Dave. I don't have any questions right now.
Yeah, Bailey, let's just go to Mr. Cummings then.
Okay, perfect. I can do that. Okay, so I'm wondering if I just do this. Do you guys see that?
Oh, well done.
Yes, you do. Okay.
Did you make
I
it
shared
bigger?
the screen. Okay, so this was the comment that was included as an attachment to you guys' packet, so I can just go through them. The traffic obviously coming off of Highway 10. So I maybe another good.
Is there a bunch of feedback?
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of feedback too.
Yeah, can folks mute I'm gonna mute myself too.
Okay, hopefully it's just me. Is that better? Okay, good. I see it's Josh. Okay, so here's the subject property. So one thing I will, sorry, it's one of those where I've got like 20,000 pictures open. Okay, so Mr. Cummings, his property is right, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, but his property, just for everybody's, so they know where it is, this is his property up here. So he's just north of the property location, just so we're in reference of his comments. Okay, there we go. So that everybody can see it. So traffic coming off of Highway 10, obviously they would be coming off that existing 60-foot wide private road access easement that was established from a COS back in, I think it was 1970. Hold on, I can tell you. 1979 is when that 60-foot private road and access agreement, and the existing house here, they already currently access from that. So it would be down here to the south, not off the northern property line. The kind of storage they are offering, their application just says RV boat storage. Pretty much, they're not walled enclosed storage units. As far as toxic substances and leakage, that wouldn't be something that we would deal with. That would be maybe a DEQ question, but so I mean, it's not a commercial storage unit, I guess. It's residential in nature for that answer. They're not changing the zoning because there isn't any zoning. It's unzoned at this time, so it's not a rezoning request. So nothing will change in the surrounding area to change the zoning. As far as liability insurance, again, that's something that's outside of our control. That's not something that we would require through this review with buildings for lease or rent. So I'm assuming they would have to have something just for their business, but that's not regulated by Missoula County. Same number 5, as far as the property lines for drain fields, that would be something that would be reviewed with the Environmental Health Department with their, well, number 1, they have to do their DEQ review for the family transfer, but then also, you know, for septic and things like that, that would be where the requirement for their drain field location and how far from property lines, that's all dealt with environmental health. Number 6, the kind of fence and how high, again, it's an unzoned property, so there are no requirements like we would see in our normal zoning regulations that have standards for fence heights and locations. It's unzoned, so none of those standards apply. So we don't have any way of telling them how high their fence could be or where it is. They are proposing a fenced area, just like probably every storage unit for trespassing and things like that. So that might be a question the applicant might be able to answer more if you wanted to.
Could Corey answer that question? Could Corey answer that question, please?
Sorry, I was on mute there. Yeah, I think as of right now, we're planning under 8 foot tall. I think it's a 7 foot tall chain link fence is what we're looking at doing. I don't believe we're planning on slats.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Okay. Number 7, as far about flooding with the field during spring runoff. Again, they will have to do their stormwater management, and that will get looked at with their building permit. They are still required to get a building permit, land use permit. So I imagine that would be looked at by Public Works during the time of building permit to make sure that their stormwater facilities are in fact using the calculation. As I mentioned, the water quality comment that they do, you know, the water quality district reference using the Public Works manual and the stormwater calculations and events that we have in there for that.
Okay. Excuse me. My concern with that is that in the spring, all that water runs off in our field. And there's so much clay that they have moved around up there now. Their storm collection systems aren't going to do anything because it's all around the perimeter. All that clay is going to flush into our field.
Bailey, can you repeat what he said? Because I couldn't catch that.
Same for me, Bailey. I couldn't understand what he said.
Okay, what I heard was that he has concerns during the spring runoff, the way the water must flow out there on the property, that it's going to run towards the north, probably closer, I would assume that's O'Keefe Creek that's out there. And so it's probably draining towards his property naturally. And so he's just wanting to make sure that that it's not going to increase any further drainage or exacerbate any existing drainage onto his property. So
this is Sean here with 406. All the new grades out there, everything's going to be sent to the detention ponds, and it's going to be probably a little bit less than he's seen in the past. It's the detention ponds are going to carry the 100-year storm, which is a substantial amount of volume. That's what the Public Works Manual tells us to do, which is one of the conditions you guys are asking us. So to answer your question, it's probably going to be less than it was before.
You know, I live out here, and I can look right out my window, and I can see that's going to drain to my house or to my property. And it's not the main part of that big flat area that I'm worried about. It's the sides of it, that all that clay is just loose powdered clay, and that spring runoff is going to wash it right into our field.
So as part of the conditions that they're imposing on us as well, it's a part of that is a revegetation plan and landscaping plan. Once the sides of the clay slopes have been stabilized, that won't be an issue either. It'll be covered with grass, and you just won't see that runoff.
Well, you're not going to grow grass there before next spring, are you?
Then you have to do wattles, or what do you call that?
Straw wattles, silt fence.
Yeah, I think we have to put up some type of straw wattles or like silt fence or something to, capture it on our property. We have no intention of trying to cause any damage to your property, or nor do we want to have our grade be washed away. I mean, that's very expensive to try to change after the fact.
Yeah.
So, and as part as my understanding of our approval will be with storm drainage, we will have to construct it appropriately to meet all the guidelines so that doesn't happen. I mean, that's the whole reason for the stormwater, permit or approval, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah, Corey, are you one of the people that are working over there on the machinery?
I own the property. Yeah, I'm out there from time to time.
Okay, maybe I can get with you and show you my concern.
Absolutely. Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have I could give you my phone number too. I'd be more than happy to meet you out there, and we could walk it. And I have no interest in causing anybody any type of property damage at all. And I hope the neighbor that I actually share his approach would speak for me when I say I've done as much as I can when I'm trying to cut my access in to not cause him grief. Because yeah, the last thing I want to do is upset you guys. That's not what my goal is.
Oh yeah, I'm not accusing you of trying to cause him any damage, but it's a concern of ours.
For sure. And I'd be happy to meet you there to try to address those concerns and make sure that they never come to fruition.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
And I got his email, so
you got his email too. Okay.
We can get in touch with you, Bob, after the meeting. Set up a time.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, and so the last couple of questions, you can see them on the screen there. Sorry if it keeps moving as I move my mouse around. So about as far as cleanup, of garbage. Again, that's all private property. It is in the area for Republic Services for garbage, but they're not proposing any large garbage cans on the property. But that would be a private property requirement, just as everybody else in town, to keep their property clean. As far as paved roads, again, it's not a subdivision, so it's just a project. They are located outside of the air stagnation zone, so it's not a requirement that they have to pave anything in the property. And I'm not sure what their proposal is, but it's not a requirement. We can't make them pave, so it's not a subdivision. And then 10 is more of just, it looks like a question about dust, keeping the dust down during dirt work, etc. So if there's any, I'm happy to answer any more questions if you guys have some too.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Really, it just seems, seeing this, hearing this list, this is much more of a neighbors talking to each other than planners and government. And I really appreciate what I heard from Mr. Brown, that he's willing to chat with his neighbor, and it sounds like they can work these things out.
Yep, I don't have any questions, and I'm glad Corey and Bob will be in touch.
Yep, I concur. All right. Well, I'll be happy to make this motion if there's no other public comment. Okay, seeing none, I would move that the buildings for lease or rent project on parcel 1B of certificate of survey 4074 as represented in the applicant packet be approved based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law found in the staff report, subject to the following conditions of approval, which are: 1, a land use permit shall be reviewed and approved by the planning office prior to construction of the buildings for lease or rent. The building shall be in substantial compliance with the plans submitted in the applicant packet, including the proposed landscape areas. 2, a building permit for all new buildings shall be reviewed and approved by County Public Works Department prior to construction of the buildings for lease or rent.
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Here we go. Thank you all. Thanks, Bailey, for all the work today. And you did a great job standing in for Matt.
Yeah, just a little pinch hitting, you know.
Oh, you did it. You did great.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Bailey. Thanks, Corey. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys very much. Thank you, Bob.
Have a good day, guys.
Do we have any other business before us that we have not yet attended to?
Is there some, I lost our agenda. Is there correspondence?
This one.
We're done.
We're done. Unless there is indeed other business.
No.